guys, welcome back to the JPM Performance channel. It is once again time for our shop tour of the week. We are in the last day of June, halfway through the year, kids. So it is, we're coming up on 4th of July weekend, so I want to wish everybody a happy 4th of July weekend. Go out and have fun with friends and family and try and be as responsible as you possibly can. I know that can be tough on these weekends, but anyway, let's get into the shop tour. So as you can see here, there's nothing on the bench. That's because I just finished 4 differentials up and getting ready to start cleaning all of the engine components for Perry Simon's Runoffs engine. So we are getting into Runoffs engine time. So you're gonna be seeing a lot of those here over the next 2-3 months, July, August, September, and it's Runoffs. So we are getting really close. In the meantime, let's get into it here. So in the middle of tearing down Don Tucker's engine, which will also be his Runoffs engine. So this is an older engine that he's run quite a bit, and still in the middle of the teardown process. But an interesting thing that I found, I initially saw that this intake lobe here had some really strange looking wear. And then I noticed when you look at it from the side, you can kind of visually see that this lobe is not as high as this lobe. So tip of the day, and these are really high lift cams. This is pretty high compression, lots of horsepower, 8700 RPM engine. So these are solid lifters, and you really need to stay on top of them as far as your valve lash goes. So we're running a base circle of about 1.305 inches. So we'll measure the base circle on all of these, and those are the same. But when we go to measure our valve lift, our good lobe here is 1 inch, looks like 808, and the lobe that I noticed did not look so good is 1.796 inches. So we are 12th thou down on that lobe, and this cam is now scrap. So we're gonna have to get a new cam ground for that. I already measured the exhaust lobes, they all look good. Of course, these are custom camshafts, and this is probably gonna be a little hard to see in the video, but there's actually a concave in this lifter pretty badly. So this thing had been beaten for a little while, had been getting run like this. If you're gonna run solid lifters, these all have these little shims that either go on top of the valve or on this stem inside the lifter. You need to be very diligent about checking these and making sure that they're staying within spec, because as soon as they start to pound with excess valve lash, this is what's going to happen. You're going to tear up your lifter and your cam, and that tends to get a little expensive. So in the meantime, just getting ready to tear the bottom end down. This engine has a really nice dry sump setup. So this is a daily oil pan with one of their oil pumps. Their oil pumps are a little different than some of your traditional pumps. They like to call them like little worm gears, like little superchargers that sit inside of here. It's all billet, really nice billet pan. But the pistons are actually looking pretty good. We'll get the rest of it taken apart and see what we've got going on. So this, like I said, this is a Runoffs engine, and we'll be getting ready for that. So that's kind of what I'm working on today. In the meantime, here are the 4 differentials that are going to be freight shipped out to the East Coast to a company that likes to sell a lot of these differentials to Spec Miatas. So I do a lot of these for them. You guys have probably seen them over the many months, maybe year or so since I've been doing those. But one of these days, you'll actually get to see them all taken apart. But I can't just leave it sitting on the bench for you guys. I got to keep pounding away. So the green early car NA is completely done. The customer was actually here this morning, in from Chicago. got to drive the car, was really impressed with it. So transportation company is coming next week to transport the car in an enclosed trailer to take it back to him. So all done, really happy. Very stock cams. I think we talked about this last week. Made really good horsepower. Super happy. In the meantime, I know I had a request from Bill Hubiak last week wanting to know a little bit more about how we cut these fenders out for fender flares. Now, again, there's a really good video if you search down low where I kind of describe all of that. I like to use a plasma cutter. If you don't have a plasma cutter, a cutoff wheel will work well too. But one of the things you need to be careful about is there are places in these unibodies where it gets really thin. And so I'm not going to dog on Perry and Steven too much here, but they blew through this inner fender, which is not that big a deal, but the best thing to do is when I'm using the plasma cutter, rather than going straight down, if I know I'm in thin material, angle it and kind of bend into it. And that way, rather than your flame being an inch away from what's underneath, it can actually be 2 to 3 inches and it will not cut what's underneath. So I like to leave a little flange here. I probably would have left a little bit more here, 1.5 to 2 inches, as it comes down around the light. But this all looks pretty good, and I know that Perry likes to glue his on. I tend to pop rivet these on and then paint over them, so I can just nail out the pop rivets if I need to replace a panel. And usually I would also cut right along this seam here. I'll probably go ahead and do that right where the unibody comes together. Go ahead and cut this off here. But the rest of it looks pretty good. And so we're moving right along with this project. Another thing I wanted to show you guys was over here in the seatbelt area. There's a couple of things that are going on here. There was a tower. If you've ever seen a Miata stripped down, there's a tower that goes here that the top of the seatbelt, thank you, the top of the seatbelt mounts to. Well, we don't use those in a race car. So I've got this completely cut out. Joe got this all cut out. And this is going to make my life a lot easier when it comes to fabricating the aluminum rear shelf here. So we can follow this really nicely, come up to here. You guys will get to see that as this chassis progresses. So we are getting ready to, the seat insert's pretty much done. Getting ready to do a little bit of locate work. So I like to land my cages up here on the shelf. I think you've seen some of this in some of my other videos. This is a really strong place in the unibody to pick up your main hoop. Back in the old days, everybody used to run down here and go to the floor. I've probably said this a million times, but these floors are really weak. So we're gonna brace this like this, bring our main hoop here, tie in our lower bar with NASCAR bars here, and then we'll come into the main hoop for the upper bar. You guys will get to see all that here in the coming weeks. I'm getting really close to doing some of that. But our goal here is to maximize the space for our driver while also building a cage that is safe and also stiffens the chassis up. So we're really starting to get into this. Once all the plates are installed, I'll probably go ahead and install the front hoop. And then we got to get Steven up here in his seat so we can fit him in. Number one thing in building a new race car like this is getting your driver comfortable in the car. And when a driver's comfortable, he can go faster, I guarantee it. So the Cadillac is off to High Plains. You can see that this is basically just an empty area, but it'll be back soon enough. So off to High Plains this weekend, and then we have a couple weeks before he's going to be running his next event, actually with NASA at the Kansas Speedway. He wants to go run the high banks, so good for him. It looks to me like Eric has been working more on Max's go-kart than his own race car over the last week, but it's kind of a funny story, but this is an old yard cart that Eric actually bought for Max from my dad And this is an old cart that when I was about 10, my dad bought a kit from me out of J.C. Whitney. I don't know if you guys remember these J.C. Whitney catalogs, but we built this, I guess about 35 years ago when I was really young. And this is kind of how I got my start in learning how all about car control. And so now Max is out in the yard sliding around in the grass in my yard out there having some fun. So I really enjoy seeing him out there doing that. But in the meantime, I think Eric's mainly just waiting on parts and pieces. Obviously his engine is in line for me to get apart and, you know, get started on for the runoffs. We do have a little bit of a BMW update. I know you guys have been seeing all of the control arms lying around and all the new stuff. I finally got all of the control arms, the original ones, restored. So bearings out, glass bead all the arms, get all the rust off of them so we can make them like new. So those are all packed up and shipped off, going to the original guy that built the arms for Chris Dryden, which is Mitch Piper out in Leesburg, Virginia. So that's all gone out to him. In the meantime, I need to start working on the rest of the runoffs prep on the car. So those arms are probably going to take 4 to 6 weeks, I would guess. So in the meantime, you guys are going to get to see everything else that I'm going to do to the car. July's right around the corner. Next thing you know, the runoffs are going to be here. So it's kind of where we're at these days, guys. Have had a bunch of parts coming in that I've been waiting on. The part supply chain seems to be getting better and better, which I'm very happy to see. And yeah, we're gonna take off for the lake this weekend and have ourselves a little bit of a four-day weekend for 4th of July with some friends out at the lake, and use the RV for something other than going racing with, which my wife will appreciate. So that's about it for this week, guys. Next week we'll have a bunch more stuff going, and as always, have some interesting things coming up in July. I appreciate you guys watching, and again, I appreciate the comments. I'm trying to get to them, guys, every week. Had some comments about some of the Spec Miata stuff that happened up at Elkhart Lake, and of course Bill was asking about the chassis and this and that. So appreciate that. Hope you guys have had a great week, and it's not too hot where you're at. It's getting back into summertime here. We had a couple of really nice days. Like I think Sunday was like in the 70s, which is kind of strange for around here, but that's the way the roller coaster in Kansas works when it comes to weather. So hope you guys have had a great week. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week. Take care. Actually with NASA at the Kansas Speedway, he wants to go run the high banks. So good for him.